All right, folks, this is Jeremy Codman. I am back at you with another episode of Quizzing in America, and this time I'm doing something pretty unique. I am recording live with my guest in person, and it's a little bit different than my typical guest. This is not somebody who runs pub trivia, but it's a name that is very known in the trivia and quizzing communities. And if you're a fan of game shows like Jeopardy or more recently The Floor, you also may have heard of this gentleman and seen him. I'm talking about Dave Madden. He's a former 19-time Jeopardy champion. He was one of the 3 finalists on the most recent season of The Floor, and he runs one of the most impressive, amazing quizzing organizations in America, really in the world, I should say, because it's the international academic competition. So, Dave, thank you for being here. Welcome, and say hi, I guess.
Thank you, Jeremy. Happy to be here. We're recording this at our high school level national championship tournament, which is going on in Arlington, Virginia, as we speak.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of a first for me. I have hung around some of these academic competitions because I've been involved in the trivia world for so long, but I've never really fully participated where I've gotten to read and see these kids in action. And I mean, these kids are amazing. They're smarter than most people 2, 3, 4 times their age. They have so much information and just organizing the whole thing. Give me a little bit of background on the IAC. How long has it been around? Have you been involved from the start? Did you start this? Did you take it over? What?
This is very much my creation.
Okay.
From day one, which goes all the way back almost 15 years. So this is our 15th annual national championship. And this grew out of my love for high school quiz bowl, which was what I competed in growing up. I went to a public high school in northern New Jersey, and really fell in love with quizzing when I was in high school. At the end of my sophomore year, we won a quiz tournament by 10 points off of something I had studied on the bus going to the tournament that morning.
That's a great feeling.
And, you know, when you study something and it comes right up and it makes all the difference, that, you know, can be a great accelerator, I suppose. And then my junior year, my senior year, I really went into study binge mode and taught myself so much about so many subjects. And our team ended up in second place at one of the main national championships that year. And I couldn't complain with that. The other team that beat us was fair and square better. I did a little bit of college quiz bowl at Princeton as well. And then a year out of Princeton, I was studying in Germany for my master's and flew out to California on a bird watching trip. And it was really a bit of an afterthought initially that my buddy Jeff Hoppus, a name some folks might recognize, and I were going to be close to Los Angeles. And I thought, well, maybe Jeopardy's doing tryouts, and called up the show. And that was back when they still did tryouts in Culver City. And it turned out that one of the only days that month they were doing tryouts was a perfect day for us. So we went in and took the test, and that got me started in that.
Well, and so how old were you when you were on Jeopardy?
23.
23. So you were pretty freshly out of college then,
yeah,
right?
And in fact, going back to when I was playing high school quiz ball, I even distinctly remember thinking when I was 16 that I didn't want to be on the team tournament or the college championship, because I knew that, you know, you were limited much more on the winning side at that point. And also disproportionately, those tournaments attract serious quiz bowl players. And I knew that my strengths would be mitigated by that. So I figured that I wanted to do the regular show and do that when I was 23 years old. And that's exactly how old I was when it all went down.
That's amazing. And you were, I mean, so you came after Ken Jennings, right?
I did, yeah.
But at that point, when you went on your run, and for those that don't know, I said at the beginning, you were a 19-time champion. When you won those 19 games at that point, was that the second longest streak ever to Ken? Or
it was indeed, and it lasted as the second longest streak, I think, for about close to 10 years
until Julia Collins came along. Yeah, and now
there,
you know, now there's quite a few that are up there. You're still in the top 10, right? Yeah.
I'm tied with Jason Zuckerman.
Oh, yeah.
Who, by the way, I should mention, he's a quiz coach down in Texas, and he's got some students competing in our tournament this week.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
I'm kind of sad that he's not here, because I love Jason. I loved his run on Jeopardy as well. I've had the chance to meet him at some trivia events. Maybe at some point I'll have him do an episode of this. But so you went, and by the way, for those that may not be aware, your run was ended by somebody who won only one game, And you'd think, oh, well, she just got lucky and she didn't know what she was doing. But no, the woman that beat you is maybe the best quizzer in the world. I mean, I think that's like saying that seems like it's a bit much, but you lost to Victoria Gross, right?
Yeah, I did. And that was back before, I think she went on the most epic study binge of all time.
And I wonder if I like, yeah, because when she beat you at that point, she probably wasn't at the, I mean, she definitely wasn't at the level she is now, just because the level she is now is about as elite as you can get. But did you, I mean, she beat you, so obviously she had that ability in her, and
Oh, sure.
yeah.
I mean, she played a great game. She was aggressive on the switch. A lot of my initial opponents were not. She found the daily doubles. That certainly helped as well. Categories didn't play to my strengths, but look, she won fair and square. I couldn't complain. And interesting anecdote: the third player in that match, Steve
Keltenbaugh, right?
Yeah, so he has staffed this tournament many years. I don't think this year, but he's staffed our national championships many times. Became a friend, and he stayed over at my house or my parents' house in northern New Jersey the night before he did his 250 thou on Millionaire.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
And so you've got three players in that show, and we were all in our early 20s at the time.
Yeah.
And like the minimum amount that any one of us ended up winning on quiz shows was 250K.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, and I've met Steve as well. He's a good guy. And I'll tell you, if Jeopardy really wants to do these second chance tournaments, they should dig into the archives and bring Steve back for a game.
My friend Jeff Hoppus, with whom I tried out, he's the Kevin Bacon of Jeopardy, because I was his birding buddy and college quiz bowl teammate. Another of his college quiz bowl teammates is his wife, Larissa Kelly.
Oh, wow.
And Jeff Hoppus quiz bowl at Anaheim Township High School in Pennsylvania from a gentleman named Brad Rudder.
Oh, okay.
So Jeopardy All-Stars winning team, it was Jeff Hoppus's birding buddy, wife, and high school quiz bowl team. And the crazy thing is he could beat all of us at quiz bowl.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty amazing. So you won all this money on Jeopardy. Is that what you used to start IAC?
Initially, yeah, it was certainly Jeopardy winnings that helped get it off the ground. But one of the nice things about it was that I was in the process of becoming a history teacher when I had the initial idea to start with the National History Bee and the National History Bowl. So the genesis of everything that is now international academic competitions goes all the way back to when I was living in France with my wife. We were who was French. We were just dating at the time, and I just randomly had the idea one day for a history quiz tournament at my former high school. I thought, hey, this would be fun. I can write the questions. I know a number of coaches who are still active from my high school days. They can bring in their players. I can reach out to my high school social studies department. And if nothing else, maybe this becomes a once-a-year thing, and it could help me find a job as a history teacher, because it's pretty cool to put together your own history quiz tournament. And pretty much from the outset, I knew that when I ran that initial tournament in May of 2010, that I had found my calling. It was, we called it the Tri-State History Bowl. We had teams from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, close to 150 students at that very first tournament. And it was less than a week after that I officially set up everything, first as the National History Bee and Bowl. And then 2 years in, we started running geography tournaments. And in year two, in fact, we had a connection at the American School in Paris and Shanghai American School. And with my wife being French, at the time, she was just finishing up her marketing degree and needed something to market. So I said, well, I spent the first year successfully setting this up across the United States, and we have now a contact in France and a contact in China. Maybe you could travel around Europe and Asia and get this going at some international schools. And that's how in year two, we got the International History Bee and Bowl started. And we've never really looked back. And now our organization, known as International Academic Competitions, is active for students in about 50 countries overall in any given year.
Okay. And by the way, if you're listening and you're like me and you're unfamiliar with some of this, and I'm learning all this weekend, a lot of it anyway, what the difference between a bee and a bowl is, and correct me if I'm wrong. A bee is when students are competing individually.
That's right.
And a bowl is they're competing as team.
Right? We've joked that we should have that tattooed on our foreheads. We get that. We get that.
Yeah.
But yes,
I
think the spelling would be for all of our individual competitions with the buzzer, and then bowl as like Super Bowl, Quiz Bowl, College Bowl.
Sure. And then like at this tournament, at your national tournament, and this is not even the largest tournament, the largest one's coming up in May in Orlando.
Yep.
How many you have students from, well, here, all 50 states, right?
Not quite all 50,
Okay.
but certainly the vast majority.
Okay.
We're about 35 to 40 that are represented by
Okay.
one student.
Yeah, I know I had a school from Idaho I read for earlier.
And lots of students from Puerto Rico and any number from District of Columbia too.
Okay.
Get them in.
Yeah. So yeah, eventually they'll get statehood or something along those lines. So you've been running this now for, you said 15 years, right?
15 years, yeah.
And when did it grow? I mean, so when did the international aspect start? How far after the 15?
So that was just in year 2.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so very, very,
Really?
yeah. And I've lived for about 5 years of my adult life in Europe.
Okay.
So I did my master's in Berlin, which is where I was living when I did my Jeopardy run initially. I was also an exchange student in Vienna and went back to live there for a time, lived in France and have traveled extensively. So I love my country. I love my planet. I think everybody should be.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, get out and see as much of the
Yeah.
world as you can. It is an amazing place. I love to travel. I love to see places. And actually, that reminds me, you were unable to compete in one of the Jeopardy tournaments they did, right? Because you were in Europe. And wasn't that correct? Like
Well,
there was
not quite. There was a tournament I wasn't able to do. There was a contractual issue. Can't really talk too much about.
Fair enough.
But it all sorted itself out, thankfully, in time for the All-Star game.
Yes.
I double checked with Jeopardy, and it was all good. So yeah, that was
Okay. And of late, now, what made you go out for the floor? Or have you been going out for other shows all this time and you just didn't get cast? So you get cast on the floor? Or did you?
I've tried out for Millionaire several times. And I actually tried out for The Chase once, but never got on either of those shows. I've been so busy with my work and I have the absolute best job in the world. I tell everybody that I could do this happily to the day I die. So I don't have as much time to study, maybe beyond just running tournaments, where obviously the academic side of things is continually refreshed in my brain. But for the floor, it's an interesting story. Another name I'm sure many people recognize, Bob Harris.
Oh, sure.
Author of Prisoner of Trebekistan, is a very good friend of mine. I met him when I was out for my initial Tournament of Champions back in 2006. And Bob and I stayed friends, and I had invited him to my Jeopardy Invitational Tournament, the JIT appearance, and that was just over a year ago. And Bob had been approached by the floor to see if he would be interested in going on that, because the floor wanted a strong Jeopardy player.
Sure.
So it was not so much that I really reached out to the floor. It was more that the floor reached out to Bob. But Bob was not really up for making the trip to Ireland for a few reasons, and he graciously offered me his slot. And so I contacted the floor, and that's how that happened.
Interesting. And so for those that have not seen the floor, I'm not going to go over everything, but basically they start out with 100 contestants, each with one section of the floor. Each has an expert category, and we'll get in a little bit of that in a second. And then you challenge each other head to head. There's a randomizer that selects a contestant to go, and they challenge somebody next to them. And it gets down to the point where there's one person left, and that person wins $250,000, and you can win money for having the most sections of the floor at the end of every episode. Now, it seemed to me, and I mean, I think maybe you saying that they wanted a big Jeopardy champion, they wanted maybe a villain. I mean, I don't know if you felt like you were portrayed as like, I don't think you were portrayed villainously, but I think they wanted to make it.
It's good storytelling. And these shows are.
What's that?
I want to close the room, sir. It's done out midnight, sir. By midnight, we are closing all the meeting rooms.
Oh, can we not?
We're the organizers of the whole event for the weekend. Can we just stay in this room, please?
How long you want to stay?
About another half hour.
Yeah, that's about it. If that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll edit that out, obviously. But anyway, so
Want to phrase the question again about me being a villain?
yeah, sure. So I don't know if you felt like you were portrayed as a villain, but I think they definitely wanted to have a bad guy, or like, ooh, this is the guy that's going to beat everybody, and we got to take this guy out. And I think they did give you a little bit of a villainous kind of feel.
Well, look, nobody necessarily roots for the New York Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys
Yeah.
unless, you're from New York and Dallas, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, it certainly added an interesting element to the show. I think many of the other contestants were intimidated a little bit, either by me or my category of European geography, or both. But at the same time, there's so much chance in the show, and there's lots and lots of pop culture and so many different categories. And, some of this is just inherently difficult to study for. And while there were certainly any number of categories that really played to my strengths, and I was very fortunate to play a few of those, there was a lot of on the board that I really didn't want any part of, including cosplayer boy bands, which I got stuck with at the end.
I was thinking at the beginning, I was like, oh my God, if Dave has to go up against somebody in Real Housewives cast members, I was like, yeah, I think that's the one where I like, because I watch the show and I'm pretty good at pop culture, and I like the floor a lot. I think most of the categories I would be better than most of the people. When I saw that Real Housewives category, I was like, oh, I can name some Real Housewives. I don't know that I can recognize them, right? Like, yeah. So there's some holes. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's more that I've got my stuff that I like. I'm a big classic rock fan, so I know that really, really well. There's certain TV shows I watch, but there's so much I just don't have time for.
And I don't know how much of this you can talk about. You can tell me what you're contractually prohibited from saying, but I am so curious with the floor. One, obviously, you're a geography guy. You've been all over the world, so European geography is a category you are truly an expert in.
Yes.
But it seems to me that some of the categories on that show are a little bit crazy. I mean, it's like, stuff in junk drawers or whatever. And yeah, exactly. And it's like, and some of it is just so random that are they pushing categories on people that don't necessarily like, or is there people saying, well, I kind of know this category, and do you know?
Well, for my own personal experience, they asked me what sort of category would play to my liking, and I told them anything with geography, and then they asked me to narrow that down a little bit, and I said, well, I suppose Europe, having lived over there, that might even be a stronger category for me vis-a-vis most players. And so that's how I got that. So, I mean, I was certainly really happy with my category. If they were out to portray me as a villain, they were also certainly not setting me up to fail from the outset.
Yeah.
And, look, I cannot at all complain about any aspect of the experience. It was a tremendous opportunity for me. I have nothing but nice things to say about everybody involved, from the production team to Rob Lowe, the host, to the other players. It was just a great time. And in fact, before the final episode, when I saw the trailer come on and it said David versus everybody, I laughed out loud. I thought that was hysterical. So,
you were the Goliath and David at the same time, right?
Yeah, and it's good storytelling. And in fact, I think that the narrative of the final episode and the season in general was great. I mean, you got Brian O'Halloran, an actor who a lot of people know from Clerks, doing an incredible job.
Oh yeah, he went on. I mean, that was amazing.
That was fantastic to watch. And then he finally exits the stage, and I've been waiting in the wings this whole time, and the way it played out was so good for me. I wanted, above all, not to embarrass myself, which I don't think I did.
No.
I also wanted to be a factor in the end. I knew they were going to, play up the Jeopardy side of things, and I wanted that to matter. I wanted to be a factor. There's so much luck involved, 100 players, that my aim going in was, sure, I wanted to win, but it wasn't, the goal that I set myself.
Sure.
That
you wanted to be there in the end, right?
Anything short of that would be failure. No, not at all. I mean, there's far too much chance just involved, and I wanted to win a little money, and I did.
And you did.
So I mean,
10,000, right?
I ticked all the boxes that I had on my to-do list, and other than Chef Steve, who won the season, I think I was probably the happiest guy at the end of the show there.
Now, so how long was filming? Because I mean, it goes what, 9 episodes? Is that right?
12
episodes.
12,
okay,
yeah,
12 episodes.
Over a full week.
So it was a full week of filming.
Yep.
So are you filming 2 episodes a day then?
2 or 3.
2 or 3. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's very long days. It's about a 7 a.m. call time, maybe even earlier, a few days.
Okay.
And we didn't get back to the hotel until about 10 at night.
And I noticed that in every episode, everybody is always wearing the same outfit. So do you
Yeah.
do you bring two of the same outfit? Do
Well,
they wash it for you?
I've got my jacket from the floor right here behind me, in fact. But I've got a bit of a different story. They tell you to bring two changes of clothes and then you'll switch it in and out day by day, and they'll dry clean the outfit that you're not wearing on that particular day. So you're not in dirty clothes all week as the week progresses.
Okay.
To dispel one false rumor. But then the other thing was that I was actually coming in from Greece. I had been in Greece for a few days beforehand, and I had a short layover in Germany en route. And while I made my flight, my suitcase did not. And then it became an additional goal of mine on the floor to survive, because they tape in Ireland, until my suitcase got there. Because typically, as soon as you leave, you're on the flight back to the US the next day. And I got in on a Sunday. My suitcase didn't arrive until Wednesday evening.
Okay.
So the jacket that you see me wearing on the floor was actually just given to me by the show's
Okay.
costume and apparel team. And then they did the little pocket square and sewed it in, and it's great. But so I got the jacket as a souvenir from it.
They let you keep the jacket.
They let me
That's
keep the
very
jacket.
nice.
Yes, very nice.
So there's 100 people on the floor. There's 100 categories. How soon do you find out the other 99 categories? You know, going in what your category is going to be.
Not necessarily even on that. I knew that, they were probably going to give me something geography, but I wasn't even certain on that. We only got the full list of categories maybe about 4 days before taping started. And I think we only, from that list, actually learned what our category would be 1 or 2 days in advance. But I saw European geography on the list, and I
And that's going to be
that's
okay. So they don't
certain.
even. So you see the list of categories before you actually know what your personal category is.
Yeah, that's
So,
how
like,
it worked. Yeah.
So there could have been another cat, like there could have been something Asian geography or something else similar that maybe
Bodies of water, which I ended up playing, was, I think, the closest that anything else came. There was state quarters that would have worked well for me, but yeah, I was pretty sure that when I saw European geography on the list, that's what I.
And do they, when they show you the list, are they showing you the actual diagram of the floor? So you don't know what might be next to you.
You don't know.
Okay.
So see where I'm at, and then only then did the cramathon begin.
Okay, because you want to cram on the topics that are near you, right? Because those are the ones you're most likely to have to play.
Yeah, it's almost as far away as you could get. But that's how the game, goes at the end. It obviously opens up, and categories that were initially far away from each other, are suddenly touching each other. But yeah, for much of the week, I studied fairy tales and fables, which was right in front of me.
Okay.
The player who had that, Tyler, had that category until about episode 10 or so. And right behind me was McKenna from Utah, who had baby products, mother of number of kids. And so those were really my only two choices, together with what was next to me, which was whatever Brian had.
Yeah.
And that changed a little bit, right? But Brian's territory was rather large, and so different categories that were around there ultimately came into Brian's possession. So I did a lot of cramming on categories that were adjacent that I thought I might end up playing. But honestly, I think there wasn't a single thing that I studied that ended up coming up on the floor. I didn't get to play the fairy tales and fables category. I would have done very well with it, but I didn't play that one. Honestly, bodies of water. Look, I run geography quiz tournaments.
So you don't have to study.
I didn't really need to study that one. And also I played eras. I also run history quiz tournaments for a living. So that one was pretty good too. Again, at the end of the day, I can't look back and, I do know what an Arabian oryx was, which was the last thing that flashed. That one I should have picked up, but it's hard, on a second or two for that to come.
Oh yeah, when you're on the spot, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people, they'll see people that, like, I always tell people that haven't been on Jeopardy, right? When you see somebody on Jeopardy, even if they get on there and they end in the red and they had a horrible show, the steps you have to take to get on Jeopardy, the tests you have to take, like, you have to be
there by accident.
Nobody's there by accident. You have to be a very knowledgeable person, and then once you're up there in the spotlight with the buzzer and the cameras, and I mean, things change, and it becomes a different game. So it's and a show like The Floor, where you really have to be like, 1 second after the other, naming things and identifying things. it can be very difficult. You have one brain freeze where you don't recognize something in a second, and it costs you.
Yep.
And when you went out, I think the guy that beat you only had a few seconds left, right?
Yeah, it was very
So
close.
it was
The one right before that.
Yeah.
So either of those could Andrew, I lost to his great guy, Stephen, who won same. I mean, and you know, it was good for the narrative that somebody else got a
Yeah,
chance.
no,
That's gonna be
absolutely.
great.
Like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was fantastic. Now, I am also curious, one other thing, well, maybe one other thing, maybe more, about the floor. So you find out the other categories, or you find out what you're next to on the first day of taping. You're taping 2 or 3 episodes a day. They're
Yep.
very long days. How much downtime do you have
A
in
decent
between
amount.
episodes?
Yeah.
And do you immediately go into do you have a device? Do they confiscate your device? Do
No,
you?
so phone or anything out on the actual floor.
Sure.
But there's a very spacious green room on the other part of the studio lot. And that's where we would get meals. That's where we would, you know, be brought to at the start of the day. And there was a decent amount of downtime. Yeah. So, you know, probably for about, you know, we were there by the time we got to the studio, maybe about 7:30 in the morning. We were there until close to 9:30 at night, or so it's 14-hour days. Probably about half that time we were in the green room, and probably about half that time we were on the floor.
And
so there was a lot of chance to study. Yeah.
So was your strategy, I'm not going to socialize. I'm going to immediately get on a device and start studying pictures of Real Housewives or people in cosplay, or
I really decided to study once I knew what was going to be close to me on the floor.
Okay.
And at that point, then I took it quite seriously. And, you know, I mean, certainly, you know, you take a few breaks and talk to people, and
Sure.
some of that's strategic. You're trying to sound people out, see who might be a little nervous, or who might be, you know, a good person to take on. But generally speaking, you know, I played the categories more than the other players. And in any case, I took it seriously. I, you know, studied when I got back to the hotel at night. I studied on the bus there and back. So it was a grueling week, but, you know, very rewarding week in the end. But very different experience from Jeopardy. I mean, I studied a lot for Jeopardy too, obviously, but any one fact coming up in a Jeopardy episode, obviously the odds are a little lower for that.
Sure.
Even the more so when they bring you back for tournaments where the level of difficulty goes up, because then the canon of knowledge that they can ask about increases.
And also, when you're coming back for a tournament, the level of competition is stepping up a notch, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more than a notch. Yeah, really.
But you know, studied for my initial Jeopardy run in particular, that I remember coming up almost immediately thereafter. I remember asking none other than Larissa Kelly, my ultimate All-Stars teammate, during my initial run, because I knew that she spoke some Spanish, how to pronounce the Secretary General from Peru. And she said, Perez de Cuellar. And I got that as one of my clues on the show.
Oh, wow.
And there was another one where I got a question on Nicholas Nickleby, mentioned the clue mentioned the character Wackford Squeers, who's the corrupt schoolmaster in that book. And that was something I literally studied in the hotel hot tub in Culver City, California, the night before that show.
Dickens has some wonderful names
Yep.
in his books. Yeah, I played competitive Scrabble for a number of years. I don't play as much anymore. Oh, well, nice.
Yeah, I haven't played for a while.
And I remember at a tournament, it was a national tournament. At lunch, we were studying words that ended in like, and somebody said, if somebody puts a like on the board, there's only 2 3-letter front extensions for a like, and they're Nova like and Lava like. And my first game after lunch, I was able to open with the word alike, and I had a V on my rack, and I ended up drawing an L and an A. And the very next play, I played lava like, and my opponent challenged me. And I laughed as we went up to the computer because I knew it was good. Like, I mean, you know, and I had learned the word 30 minutes prior.
There's a famous quote that says, luck is the recipe of design.
Yeah.
And if you seriously take life seriously and prepare well, yeah, you'll succeed.
Yeah.
You do enough of this, and then, you know, it's not luck, it's just, you know, the probabilities, and, you know, play to your favor.
Yeah, and people always like, oh, you have so much useful information. It's not really useful or useless. Sorry, useless knowledge. It's not really it's useful knowledge. Because, you know, I mean, what I've done for a living for the last 15 years, what you've done for a living for the last 15 years, really employs a lot of that, what some people think is useless knowledge.
Yeah. students about, yes, it's much more academic, but quiz tournaments are really, only the beginning. We like to say that, what I hopefully leaving these students with is an experience that'll serve them well throughout their lives. And, whether it's a conversation with somebody from a different part of the world or a professor in college, or you're looking for a paper topic or trying to make sense of the news of the day, so much of what comes up in our questions is relatable to all of those experiences. I like to say that the night that I met my wife, who's from France, as I mentioned, we get into the usual, well, where are you from? And you're from the USA. You're from France. Okay. Well, then I get asked, well, or I ask her, well, where in France? And she says, well, the eastern part. And I said, oh, so like Alsace or Lorraine? Wait, you've heard of Alsace or Lorraine? Because being an American overseas can be a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, the expectations are often a little lower. There's this stereotype that Americans don't know that much about geography or history or world culture. The flip side of that is that if you can confound their expectations and show them that you've got a little bit of background knowledge, or maybe even a little more than a little bit of background knowledge on, their country or culture, then the doors swing open that much wider. And I've spent years of my life overseas, and the number of times that, I've ever, personally really encountered anti-Americanism, is like once or twice. And the number of times that I've been able to, see people, impressed that Americans know, some things about their culture. Oh, practically on a daily basis. And I love being a cultural ambassador for our country, when I do that.
Yeah, and I love, in what you do in with all these, they're really, really bright, intelligent kids that are at these tournaments, and they know so much about both America and the world at large. And I hope that as they get older, they get to not only learn about it, but they get to experience it, get out and see some of the places, right?
Do that,
and because you have tournaments all over the world. Do you get good American turnouts at some of the international tournaments?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. I mean, we're active in about 50 countries, but the majority of students that compete in our events are in the USA. And largely that's just because the United States has perhaps an unrecognized benefit of our education system is that we place more emphasis on extracurricular activities, and I will include academic competitions in that than many, many other countries. It's not to say that academic competitions don't exist overseas, they certainly do, but particularly the college admissions process, it's very rare outside of North America for extracurriculars to really be taken into account that much. Whereas in the United States, and I think the same is true in Canada, it is very much, an important thing, whether it's sports or theater or musical instrument or academic competitions or really anything. I think universities often want to see that you're passionate about something, you have some accomplishments that you can point to. And that may be one of the reasons why, academic competitions are much more still developed throughout the USA than overseas. We're a part of that, but there are lots of other great organizations like NAQT, for example, that run other competitions around the USA. But I've seen it as our mission to really take these buzzer quizzing competitions and take them worldwide. And there's really no other organization that has run with that to anywhere near the extent that we have. And it is really inspiring to see, new kids in new countries take to the buzzer, take to quizzing, and they get, the magic just as quickly as kids in the US. And we run a biennial world championship for history called the International History Olympiad, and we run a biennial world championship for geography called the International Geography Championships. Those are held overseas. The History Olympiad is taking place this summer in Paris. The Geography Championships will be next summer, summer 26 in Thailand. And we'll have hundreds of students from the USA and hundreds from overseas at those tournaments.
And how long, when they come out for those tournaments, I'm assuming, because I know at this tournament, even though there's so much going on, there's so many different competitions, not every school or every kid is in every competition.
No, of course
so they get the opportunity to come here and not doing stuff. It's,
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not an accident, of course, that our high school national championships are in Arlington every year. The Smithsonian is right on our doorstep here. And, what a great, resource for kids coming with a family or a school group. Many schools play the History Bowl on Saturday, and then on Sunday, they'll do some sightseeing in DC, or some players will do that at least. And there's such a wealth of museums and culture there that they can come year after year and see something new every time.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely fantastic. So what's the website for IAC, by the way? What is it? Just
iacompetitions.com.
Okay.
So
So
I is an international, A is an academic, and then competitions with an S.com.
and is it like it's all high school and junior high? Is there what is
All grades.
Oh, really?
We
Okay.
have kindergartners that are coming to our national championships. Yep. And particularly in the geography bee. That's the subject, and it was true for me as well, that I fell in love with geography at age 3.
So what did it? Were you memorized the states and the capitals? What were you?
My parents gave me a puzzle where every state of the USA was its own puzzle piece.
Okay.
And you put those on this sort of cardboard grid or where it was the layout of the states going on to a blank map, but you saw the cities and the products that came from each state. So apples from Washington, oil from Texas, and so forth. And I just love that puzzle. And then I couldn't get my nose out of geography books and atlases all through my childhood. And to this day, my wife knows you can hypnotize me just by putting me in front of any map.
So yeah, my part of my love of trivia is my grandmother on my father's side worked for the World Book Encyclopedia Company. And, yeah, and I don't remember that. Oh wow! Oh, I would have loved that.
Yeah.
But she gave me a couple of books all about the American government and especially the presidency. And it had a profile up until that point. Reagan was the current president, but it had a profile of every president from George Washington to Ronald Reagan. Nice color picture, all about their lives. And I read that and I memorized all the presidents in order. And then I just started loving learning things, especially things you could put in lists.
Yeah.
So whether it was state capitals or whether it was, countries of the world or, when it comes to sports, World Series champions, Super Bowl champions. And so that's where kind of my love of learning goes. Now, normally we wrap this up and I have, if talking to somebody who runs a pub quiz, I have them kind of give me a pub quiz. Now, I'm not going to have you give me a pub quiz, but you are somebody who's written so many questions, played so much trivia. Do you have favorite types of questions or favorite trivia facts?
Yeah,
or
I do run pub quizzes sometimes or pub quiz style events
Yeah.
at our middle and elementary school national championships. We do a family quiz night. And we had about 400 people take part in that last year, and we'll get a similar turnout this year. We also ran a family quiz down in Puerto Rico for our environmental science Olympiad last year. So I really love doing that, particularly with the families of the kids that compete. Every time I ever run a quiz like that, I start out with a picture round. I always think that that's a great way to get everybody quizzing right off the bat. If you get an early arrival, they can get started right away. They don't have to wait for question 1. So
that's actually, I do the exact same thing when I run events. Is I picture around, put it out there, and if you get there early, you can start on it a little early.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I like that. And then sometimes quizzes.
Oh wow!
And often it's the first time that mom or dad,
yeah, sure,
brothers or grandparents even got the buzzer, and they get super competitive as well, which is great to see. So that's something that we can do as just a little cherry on top for those quizzes. But yeah, I would love to do more of that in the future. I've used the metaphor drinking from a fire hydrant for 15 years, and it's still true today that there are just so many opportunities out there. We have a full-time staff of 14 now, and that's growing. And we're going to bring on more people next school year. So with more capacity,
come work for the IC.
more capacity, we'll be able to reach more students, more families, and get everybody sharing the love of quizzing.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a favorite trivia factoid or question or anything like that? Or is there?
Because we're here at geography. What are the 2 doubly landlocked countries in the world?
No, that would be one is a Stan.
Yeah.
And I believe it is Uzbekistan.
I believe you're correct.
And the other is a small European country.
Yeah.
And it is Liechtenstein.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. You got it. Very well done.
I thank you very much. I have asked that. I'm going to give you a favorite.
Put me on the spot.
That's right.
I never get out of a podcast without this.
There are 4 world capitals.
Okay.
That start with a unique first letter that no other world capitals begin with.
Gosh.
Now for you, I'm not going to make it easier. I'm going to see if you can name or how many of those 4 world capitals you can name.
Oh, you're not even giving me the letter?
Well, I mean, I could give you the letter. I will say this, the letters anagram to a very appropriate word.
Wait, the first letter is
The first letter is unique. So, for example, had Scotland declared their independence, Edinburgh would be the national capital of Scotland, and it would be the only E, because there is no national capital that starts with an E.
Oh, I see.
So what is
you're saying there are 4 countries for which there is no other national capital that starts with that letter?
Yes. So we're looking for 4 capital cities that start with 4 unique letters.
You're putting me on the spot here, because
am.
this is certainly a question that if you gave me pencil and paper, I could work out, but I might need about 10 minutes.
I will
I
say,
don't know it off the top of my head.
the 4 letters that are used, the 4
Okay.
first letters will anagram to a very appropriate word.
Would that be like maps? No, that could be
Not quite
it.
that, because obviously there's lots of A's and S's. Yeah. So
Okay, I don't know what the word is. Can you help
yeah,
me with
you
the
don't
word?
know what the word is,
Yeah.
but you know what letters are probably going to be more obscure and rare, and you could probably come up with a word with some of those letters.
The Final Jeopardy type. My nightmare scenario is that it's a geography category, but it's not. It's a you have to how many 7-letter or something like that. Oh my gosh. Okay, you're gonna have to give me a little hint.
What are the rare letters for words to start with?
Q.
Okay. Is there a world capital that starts with Q?
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Well, there are on 3 different continents. So there, and this is a quiz, Dave.
Yes.
A quiz, a QUIZ quiz. Yes.
I must be Islamabad.
The I is Islamabad.
Okay. The Zagreb.
Zagreb, of course, yes. Apparently, you've not spent enough time in South America. Yes, Quito, Ecuador. So yeah. So that's just one of my favorite trivia factoids. It's a fun fact, and you can ask it in way because you can tell people they anagram to the word quiz.
Okay.
You can give lots of ins. I was a little bit mean to you and didn't give you really any ins, but yeah, no, but yeah. So that is one of my favorite geography trivia facts, and I got to tell you, I've been reading these questions, and the way these kids answer they're answering questions about places I've never heard of.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just amazed, Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. No, there's a lot of bright kids here. Anyway, thank you for doing this. It'll probably be out in about a month. We're recording this at the end of April, so probably sometime towards the end of May. And thank you for having me out here to do this. It's been fun.